Welcome to the PID webinar. ये हम लोग we are very keen to do this because quite frankly political instability is really affecting economic वो क्या कहते हैं जो हमारे transactions और सब कुछ है economy partly इस वजह से grow नहीं कर रही and जो एक चीज़ जो मैंने सब participants को एक छोटी सी हमारे questions भेज भी दी already. What I'd like is that we do a few rounds of questions so that the participants can give you informed answers. This is not like a Hamid Mir show where we want to really create a fight or a debate or anything. We just want to learn. And PID is a think tank. We want a learning kind of conversation here. उसके लिए हमने कुछ questions participants के लिए वो मैं आपके साथ थोड़ा share करता जाऊँगा and then we will inshallah get the get मंसूर साहब अपने screen sharing खत्म करके चले कोई बात नहीं ठीक है okay जी lovely. So basically ये बात ये है कि हम लोग चाहते हैं stable politics क्योंकि economic stable politics नहीं हो सकती. Economists normally argue कि constitution में economics का बहुत हाथ चाहिए lawyers ने बहुत खराब. There are a number of books that I can quote in the Hayek की famous किताब है constitution liberty वगैरह इसमें बहुत important चीज़ है. नंबर दो जो बात है कि हमारी constitution में एक amendment हो चुकी है. US constitution में 200 साल में 33 हुई है. And we've had some amendments. In fact, most amendments without any real debate. Parliament is no real debate. Everything seemed to be hurriedly done. In fact, Parliament is almost irrelevant. मिलता ही नहीं. Election के बाद बस सीटें distribute होती हैं and then Parliament really doesn't seem to meet. But the most important thing is right now everybody can see there's a mistrust everywhere. Judiciary doesn't trust the executive, executive doesn't trust the Parliament doesn't trust. Nobody trusts the army. वगैरह करते करते ये है कि हमारा एक सिस्टम बन गया grab for spoils and resources and we move from crisis to crisis. हमारी पॉलिसी में कोई थिंकिंग है नहीं ना कोई डिसिप्लिन है. तो मेरा पहला my first question to the panelists is there are two schools of thoughts that we have. Let the system run like this for decades, maybe 3-4 decades, maybe 10 decades, and we'll have dynasties, fine, but somehow we'll reach some equilibrium. The other school of thought says that the system on its own will not work because if you've got a badly designed system, it will not work. And we need deep reform. So my first question to you is, where do you people stand? And if you think that reform is necessary, what kind of reform would you guys ask for? You are I can think of no better panelists than you people, and some people in the audience that I see are very good people. So I'd like to have a very informed discussion on this question. What kind of thoughts do you have on reform? Do you buy this story that the liberal story कि सारा election को बस चलने दो और कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता? Or do we need a deeper reform? Can you please take it over? Wasim Saab, can you go first? Then we'll go around the panel.
Sorry, could you formulate the question? I didn't get it.
The point is very simple कि we are moving from crisis to crisis. कभी एक crisis आ जाता है, कभी दूसरा, कभी fund program आ जाता है, कभी corona, कभी कुछ है corona तो बाहर से है, but some of our crises of our own making. And then mistrust जो फैल गया मुल्क में कि judiciary executive को trust नहीं करती, parliament मिलता नहीं है. So there are many elements that I can quote जहाँ trust का बहुत deep crisis है इस मुल्क में और इस मुल्क में parliament चल नहीं रहा, policy जो उनसी वो day to day बनती है, budget debate नहीं होता. ये सब चीजें जो हैं, I would agree there are the system should either run or should we have deep reform? Is it going to be solved by many elections, but then we have to wait 100 years? Or is it going to be solved by deep reform now? And if reform is necessary, what kind of reform should we think of?
Well, you see, we have a constitution, and it appears that the constitution is not being followed in spirit and in letter. The constitution says something, but in practice it is something very, very different. Now, basically, we have a parliamentary system of government where the parliament is supposed to be supreme, where all the policies emanate from parliament, and where there is debate and discussion, where there's a kind of goodwill between the members, where they discuss and debate, and ultimately the object is to make policies which are good for the people of Pakistan. Number one, we find that this system is not really working. And the reason is historical. If I go into that, it will be a very lengthy talk. So I think what we need to do is to I would not say that there's something wrong with the parliamentary system itself, because there are many countries where it has been successful. It is very successfully working in our neighborhood. I don't think there is anything wrong with that. I think we need to work it in the spirit of the parliamentary system, which means that all issues should come to parliament. They should be debated. And this atmosphere of distrust that you mentioned, and there's a lot of distrust now between various parties in parliament. They're not even willing to talk to each other. They're not even willing to discuss matters. And in this atmosphere, the parliamentary system is not going to work. Again, in the judiciary, we find that the judiciary is taking up issues which the constitution did not envisage belong to the judiciary. So purely political issues are coming up before the judiciary and creating tensions between the judiciary and the executive and the parliament. As far as the executive is concerned, because of historical reasons, because of the fact that the government has a very thin majority, both in the National Assembly and no majority in the Senate, the government is weak. They're unable to take strong decisions, and they're subject to a lot of pressure from their allies, with the result that the decisions which are taken are compromise decisions, and they are not really decisions which should be taken or ought to have been taken on merit. So I would say there's nothing wrong in the system itself. It's a parliamentary system. Yes, we could examine it, and on the basis of experience, if there are some changes to be made, they ought to be made. I do not subscribe to the point of view that we should not even talk about changing the constitution. I think these are man-made documents. If experience tells us that certain changes are necessary, then they should be made. But they should be open debate, there should be discussion, and not only discussion within Parliament, but also with stakeholders outside Parliament. And we should then come to decisions and follow them.
Actually, I certainly agree with you. And nobody is talking about changing the system. Within the system, what you said, within the system, what sort of reforms do we need to make So Irfan Saab, can you sort of take it up from there? We are not talking about changing the presidential or whatever,
if I gather from the discussion, especially from the question, so I feel that perhaps we are talking of a system which is capable of least abuse. But I myself don't find any fault with the system, because in Pakistan we have had so many different systems which we have been trying. We have had presidential system, we have had the parliamentary system. And I totally agree with Wasim Sajjad Saab, and while agreeing with him completely, I would say that fault obviously would not lie in the system. But the only problem is that whenever we have a system, we don't follow the system. Problem is with us, we don't follow the system, or we try to abuse the system wherever we are. I mean, one organ of the state tries to dominate the other organ of the state, or one segment of the government tries to dominate the other segment of the government. And in this tug of war, obviously the system has to go haywire. For example, just now Wasim Saab very rightly said that it is not the role of the judiciary to be performing the executive functions, but yes, they are performing those functions. And the function of the parliament is that parliament, apart from other functions, there's also a certain amount of supremacy, because the state is to exercise its authority through the chosen representative of the people. But unfortunately, that never happens. So parliament somehow has abdicated, and the unelected lot, they dominate those who get elected. And this is not the ethos of the constitution. So we are violating the constitution left, right, and center invariably. And then we see that the idea is that whoever has been becoming the head of state in the presidential system, he would dominate completely. Then we see a phase of power sharing. And that power sharing phase for the first time started with General Ziaul Haq sharing power with Junejo, which he could not share more than 3 years. And in 88, he had to do away with Junejo also by dissolving the assembly. Now, this was not the the real ethos of a parliamentary democracy, that president may dissolve the assembly if he feels like, that that the cabinet or the assembly, they are not going or towing his line, because in any system, everybody is to work in harmony. But we see that instead of harmony, we try to work in hegemony, trying to impose our hegemony over the other. And obviously, this has to change. And then the unelected lot. I mean, it's a very, very interesting aspect, which perhaps most of us have not, may not be aware. And that is that those who are elected are being made accountable to those who are unelected. In our setup, we see the judiciary and the National Accountability Bureau, all those people which constitute the judiciary and the bureau, they are unelected people. And as far as the accountability of judiciary is concerned, it's a case of self-accountability. As far as accountability of the armed forces is concerned, it is self-accountability. But when it comes to the accountability of the parliamentarians or bureaucrats, the accountability of the elected is being done by the unelected. And the last manifestation that we saw, 2 prime ministers being sent home, that was the People's Party government from 2008 to 2013. And then from 2013 to 2018, 2 prime ministers were sent home. And that was by courtesy of Article 62-63. And I have often termed this Article 62 and 63 to be the neo Article 58-2B. We have done away with 58-2B in the 13th Amendment, and we did away with that in the 18th Amendment, but somehow that we found it a new shape of Article 58-2B in the form of 62-63. Now, in the Constitution, it is absolutely clearly mentioned that whenever a question of disqualification of a parliamentarian or a minister or a prime minister would arise, a case is to be sent to the Chief Election Commissioner or the Election Commission of Pakistan. This did not happen. And for almost 2 decades, more than that, the parliamentarians, the speakers never felt to agitate the issue of Sadiq and honest and Amin. But somehow the courts took upon itself and they started, defining what Sadiq and Amin is. And Sadiq and Amin is something which it was a title given to the Holy Prophet. And otherwise, to think that any human being other than Prophet is never going to err or going to be truthful in perpetuity, that never happens. And such idealistic standards, if you start applying on the members of judiciary as well as you apply on the parliamentarians, then perhaps everybody would be discredited. So such utopian standards cannot be applied. We need to be realistic. And in this process of complex reasoning, we often do away with the spirit of the Constitution. And the very spirit of the Constitution is the power divided is power secured. That different organs work in their independent sphere. But unfortunately, that never happens. And somehow, sometimes it is the president who dominates the parliament. Sometimes it is the judiciary which dominates the parliament. And sometimes it is the armed forces which dominate the parliament. And then those parliamentarians or those parliamentary governments who try to dominate the army, yes, they are also sent home. So it's a vicious circle which somehow continues. And learning from experience, I would say that nothing is wrong with the system, but all those people who work within the system, they need to work in harmony, which they don't do.
Thank you. Irfan Sahab, thank you. Rizvi Sahab, let me turn to you. I fully agree with everything that you guys say. But I think let's turn to constitutional principles a little. Jeff Madison की famous statement जो उसकी Federalist Papers में थी, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. In framing the Constitution, it is the greatest difficulty lies in enabling the government to control the governed and the governed to control the government. Problem is the constitution is an important document. Many countries have gone through a lot of pain to get it right. To say that our constitution is all right and everything lies in the culture, Rizvi Sahib, is that okay? Or should we think of reform? I mean, why are we so averse to thinking of reform? Hassan Askari Rizvi Sahib, hain yahan aap? Have we lost you? Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Boliye, please.
Can you hear me?
Short, we've got a few questions to go through. Boliye.
Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
All right, all right. Well, I share the concern expressed by the members of panel that Pakistan's political system is partially dysfunctional and institutions and processes do not reflect the spirit of constitutionalism and participatory governance. I think to address these issues, to somehow overcome the problem of muddling through the crisis to crisis, I think we'll have to adopt both approaches that are proposed by you. That is, there is a need of doing some changes and reforms in the constitution, as well as we'll have to let the system, go on and make mid-course correction. I will, very briefly and in a very straightforward manner, I will talk about 3 areas where we need to draw attention. One is constitutional, and I'll make specific proposals here. And second is what I call the political domain. The third domain is the relationship between individual and the state. Now, let me take up the first domain or area, that is constitutional. In this area, I propose a couple of amendments in the present constitution. First, to me, the term of the National Assembly needs to be reduced from 5 to at least 4 years, if not 3. 4 years would be fine. That's one change I would prefer. Second, the holding of local government election should be made integral to the constitution the way the elections to the National Assembly and also provincial assemblies are integral. In a way, it could be synchronized in a manner that you hold National Assembly election after 4 years, but then when you reach halfway, that is 2 years, you have local government election. For after another 2 years, you'll have National Assembly and provincial assembly election, another 2 year local government. Both elections should be part of the constitutional system so that local government elections are held very regularly. And the third proposal that I want to make about the constitution is that there is a need to review the method of selection of women members, because they are in large number now in the parliament, and their selection process should be either these are indirectly elected rather than party giving a list. They should be indirectly elected by the members of the concerned assembly from that province. Or the other method would be that you create constituencies of 2-3 districts, and from each constituency you bring in women member by direct election. The present system of proportional representation, where parties get women seats in proportion to the elected seats they win in the general election. That's the third proposal. The fourth proposal, I would share the view expressed immediately before me, that Article 62 and 63 have to be reviewed. Because the problem is that some sections of these 2 articles, qualification and disqualifications, are not operational in a depersonalized manner. And a law needs to be operationalized in a depersonalized manner. Therefore, to me, Article 62, 63 have to be revised in a realistic and practical and pragmatic manner, rather than getting involved in theories which may not apply to situation. Now, second category is political. In the category of political, the important question is how democracy becomes part of the orientation of the people. That is, how do you inculcate the spirit of tolerance and also accommodation? Now for that, you'll have to focus and make changes in your high school education, because it is at the high school level. Unfortunately, we have dropped two important concepts in high school education in the mid 80s during General Ziaul-Haq's time. What are those two concepts that needs to be emphasized? One, primacy of Pakistan as a nation state. You don't teach that in high schools now. And second, the concept of citizenship. What are the obligations and responsibility? What are the rights and duties? And what is the purpose of this state? And then also, you need to spend more on health care and education of the society. So that's the second category. Now coming to third category, very briefly, because I'm in the company of experienced people, so I'll just raise the issue. Now the third category, which I want to emphasize for changes, is the category of what I call a relationship between state and the individual citizens. And that is, can the state guarantee minimum security to individuals? That is, security for life, securing their rights, and protection against state machinery as well as powerful people. At the moment, a lot of people will vote for a powerful, influential people or a powerful, influential family, because that family provides protection to that person in a village, from Thana, from local administration. Now, if the state can provide minimum protection to individual, then individual is in a position to make a right and independent judgment when it comes to voting. Otherwise, people will vote for the person, no matter what kind of person he is. But if he can provide you protection against state institutions as well as powerful, strong and people. Final point is that you have talked about the family dynasties. Yes, that is a problem. But my own view is that dynasties, political dynasties in South Asia, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, are now on the decline. Because if dynasties, what we have seen, that from third generation onward, if dynasties cannot perform, they tend to lose. So to me, the future of dynasties in Pakistan is going to be weak, and you will have a situation where dynasties may be one factor, but not the decisive factor. Their control over party is expected to weaken in Pakistan in the next elections and onward. Thank you.
Thank you, ji. Thank you very much, Rizvi साहब. आपने बड़ी अच्छी बात की. I fully appreciate what you said. कि जी हम ये elections करें. बड़ी मजेदार बात है. Again, going to the Federalist Papers, Madison points out again and again that they thought about terms very clearly, and they deliberately ensured there would be an election every year, either of the local government, the Congress, or whatever. So many countries have deliberately made sure that they have an election every year. We, unfortunately, only have an election once in 5 years, which is kind of sad. So let me come to my second question, which I think is very important too. आपको अगर question मैं अब दिखा सकता हूँ, most likely. So let me share my second question with you. कि जी ये जो है sorry, कि ये can we improve our election system for better outcomes? हमने वो first past the post बर्तानिया का system adopt कर लिया है बड़े आराम से. Do we need new definitions? अब constitutional changes दुनिया में आपने भी पढ़ा है बहुत, मैंने भी बहुत पढ़ा है. बहुत सारी हम economists चाहते हैं, हम कहते हैं हमारे पास बड़ी अच्छी इसके लिए solutions है. ये 2 किताबें भी मैंने आपके लिए रखती हैं इसीलिए. बट जो असल बात है वो ये है कि हमारे पास इलेक्शन सिस्टम बहुत सारे हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल रैंक चॉइस वोटिंग है, 2 राउंड वोटिंग है, प्रोपोर्शनल है, मिक्स्ड मेथड्स हैं, ऑल काइंड्स ऑफ मेथड्स हैं. व्हाई डू वी हैव द फर्स्ट पास्ट द पोस्ट जो अब अमेरिका भी कर रहा है, बर्तानिया भी कर, इसको चेंज करने की जरूरत है. फॉर एग्जांपल रूल्स ऑफ पार्टीज जो है डायनेस्टी, तो वहां से बनती है कि एक बंदे का रूल है. 14th अमेंडमेंट ने उसको पक्का कर दिया पार्टी सिस्टम को. देन वी आर स्मॉल स्प्लिंटर पार्टीज दैट डिक्टेट. American system is splinter parties are banned in the sense they don't get on the ballot until they show that they have a certain plurality in the system. So that if they got some votes in the last system, or if they can post a party deposit or something. You don't have a one-man party in parliament. Acha, ye kya cheez hai? Would you consider that we need to change our, I'm not saying these are all, but do we need a change in our election system, in particular who can contest, who cannot contest? Because we economists tend to think that there is what you call it, election is like a market competition. So we have to design the market for a market to happen. Would you agree that the election system needs to be changed or not? Kyun ji, Wasim sahab?
Hello, you asking me?
Bilkul, go ahead. You.
Well, first of all, let me just comment on one thing that Rizvi Saab has said. I think he made a very valuable suggestion in suggesting that there should be a 4-year term for Parliament. I think I've been talking about this for many years. I think a 4-year term will make the parliamentarians more accountable, and there will be less desire to move outside the law and Parliament to have a change of government. So I think a 4-year term will be good for Pakistan. Secondly, you're talking about change in the election system. Now, having the other alternative that we have is what is called the proportional representation system. And I think it will create a lot of difficulties because our population by and large is not very educated. The proportional representation system is a slightly more difficult system to understand, requires a higher level of intelligence. And therefore, I think if you wholeheartedly go to a proportional system, it will create difficulties. What we could try is...
You can also have rank...
Sorry?
You can also have rank choice systems. Yeah, you rank the candidates and or the second round.
There are certain countries where they have a mix of first past the post and proportional representation system. Maybe we could try that. And also I would agree with Rizvi Saab regarding these about 60 plus members, women members who come in through nomination, which distorts the whole system. But basically, we should aim at having a strong parliament which can assert itself. At the moment, the parliament is not strong. It is challenged by so many extra constitutional forces. It is challenged by the judiciary. The concept of parliament being supreme is nowhere in sight in Pakistan. The parliament says one thing, the courts the second day strike it down and says no. The courts also issue directions to the parliament saying you do this, which is unheard of. So I think we need to make the parliament strong. For that, if you need to make changes in the constitution, that should be done. And I think any change in the constitution, which will make sure that each segment, each part of the constitutional machinery, executive, legislature and judiciary, they only pay their part in their own sphere of and not start interfering in others. I think that should be done to give more confidence to the executive and to the parliament to do what it should be doing in the interest of the people.
Irfan Saab?
जी मैं बिल्कुल एग्री करता हूं सबसे और मेरा ये सजेशन है कि वो जो 5 साल की बात की थी, सॉरी 4 साल की बात हसन अस्करी साहब ने की, वो बिल्कुल ठीक है, लेकिन इस चीज को भी देखा जाए कि अगर 3 साल कर दिए तो उसमें क्या बात है, क्योंकि नाउ आवर पार्लियामेंट्स get into power and the governments get into power and they are there wasting their time for 5 years. This way they'll be wasting their time in 3 years and any government gets exposed very quickly. We have seen that 1 or 2 years is enough, a barometer to gauge what the government has done, and it should not go beyond 3 years to begin with. And then as far as this system of elections is concerned, I don't think we need to get into, try to change all that completely, because even if we change that, the complexion of political parties in Pakistan will not change, and the people who are going to be at the helm of affairs or who are going to be in power are by and large same people, same families, and there won't be much difference in this regard. And now, and very important thing is that, as I was saying earlier also, that we often see that one organ impinges upon the other. So we need to have a check on the judiciary, and we need to have a check on the armed forces, and we need to have our differences resolved, and maybe some constitutional provisions can be suggested in that regard, because we find that at times there are very petty differences. For example, in 2008 to 2013 scenario, we see that the differences that judiciary feels that a letter should be written by the Prime Minister in Geneva. And Prime Minister had given his opinion saying that the President is immune. He has the sovereign immunity as well as immunity within Pakistan. So it will be I cannot, write a letter telling them to prosecute the President. And now this was a purely constitutional issue. And the judiciary on the face of it was wrong, because subsequently we find that in the matter of Raja Parvez Ashraf, when he was also not writing a letter, so judiciary had to pass an order in which judiciary said that yes, President has the immunity both internationally and within the country. And now that judiciary agreed that President had the immunity, so writing a letter was exercise in futility. In such situations, which are likely to rise in future also over different issues, the Prime Minister should directly get in touch with the Speaker of or the Chairman of the Senate or the President, and there should be a collegium consisting of the President, of the Chief Justice, of the Chairman Senate. And if somebody wants to give some role to the Army Chief in the context of our historic perspective, I think there is no harm that collegium can also include the Chief of the Army Staff, and such differences should be resolved through intra-institutional body, which should oversee all the institutions of the country. This, I think, is a new suggestion, but there is no harm in trying this experiment as well.
But जी साहब देखिए, बात इलेक्शन सिस्टम की है कि नहीं, जरा इस पे चलिए कि अली चीमा ने एक पेपर किया है कि खैर हम सबको पता है कि जी 33% वोट लेते हैं और 2/3 मेजॉरिटी ले जाते हैं. Some constituencies 25% वोट आती है, लोग जीत जाते हैं. Is that representation? Is that not representation? Can we improve this system, or are we incapable of thinking of a new way to improve this system?
Well, what you need to recognize that both systems have worked successfully, and both systems have, in certain cases, failed. This system first past the post system has been functioning successfully, in many states, but it also failed somewhere. Proportional representation has worked somewhere and it doesn't work somewhere. So it's not simply the system. It is how you want to manage the system. Proportional representation has two problems. One has been mentioned, that it's a complex system, and for ordinary people, it is difficult to understand, or any type of proportional representation. The other problem with proportional representation is that it tends to proliferate the number of political parties. Even if you put a baseline of 5% votes for a party in some province or some area, even then, the experience suggests that in a country where parties lack discipline, there are proliferation of parties, and people break away from party and create a new party. This will increase that kind of problem. However, the current system, that is the present system, can function successfully if it is adapted, keeping in view the complaints that political parties make from time to time. Secondly, if the elections are held regularly, then this complaint will not be there that a minority person has, a person getting less than 50% is sitting in the parliament, and more than 50% votes are outside the parliament. That kind of complaint is taken care of if the elections are held regularly. And the proposal that I had given was, in fact, practically in Pakistan, elections were to be held after every 2 years. National elections, after 2-year local government elections, then another 2-year national election. So if you have elections again and again, if you know that after 4 years, you will go to people, you will be accountable, and you will be very careful in exercising your mandate even under the present system. So I think there is a need to improve the existing system rather than going to proportional representation.
Okay, fair enough. Achaji, the point was not about proportional representation. The point was really about considering different systems, but you let it go. For example, I don't see why we can't have the French system of two-part elections, where they actually, everybody needs to go past 50%, or why we can't have a system going to, ranked choice, for example. But we'll leave that be. Now, the second thing that I see is, and again, referring to Ali Cheema and Liaquat, and referring to a number of things, you can see that in front of you that there's a lot of research that shows dynastic practices. You and I both know our culture. There are marriages, there are political, all kinds of alliances. Upshot is that we have families sitting in parliaments, and for years, upshot is that we've got a dynastic succession system where people who go to college and come straight and become prime ministers, no work experience. Is that something that you guys agree with? Economists seem to agree that they seem to think that election is the marketplace and we have to design the rules. That's why I keep going to elections. But what about things like term limits? What about things like term limits? We did have term limits for the prime minister, we killed it. Milton Friedman proposed term limits for the US Congress, still hasn't been passed, but some countries do have term limits. Some countries, Indonesia, for example, has also put in family limits that you can't have so many members of a family in parliament. What about conflict of interest? I remember when I was the deputy chairman of the Planning Commission, the committees, for example, the construction committee was made of Thekadar, the sugar committee was made of sugar barons. Then finally, we have ministers and prime ministers, etc., coming in without any educational experience. So suddenly you find an energy minister who doesn't even know what a power system is. Is that okay? Should this be the mandate, or should we think of these new methods? Should we put in term limits? Should we put in family limits? Should we have conflict of interest clauses? Should we have educational experience or not? Wasim Saab, bataiye.
Yes, these are difficult questions. The first question you raised was about dynastic politics. Now, people come in dynasties, or the children and nephews and nieces come into parliament because people vote for them. And this is unfortunate. And this is the result of our maybe historical feudal system, present economic system. But everybody who comes into parliament, he's voted by the people. So I think that we will find it very difficult, keeping in view the principles of democracy, to say that somebody can be prime minister, but his son cannot be prime minister, or his nephew cannot be prime minister. That would be undemocratic. And I think we should leave these matters to the parties to decide and the people to decide. But I would agree with you that there is need for term limits. We have a term limit in the United States. The president can't be president for more than 8 years. In a parliamentary system, I cannot think of a similar example. There's no term limit in India, there's no term limit in England. But I think on principle, a term limit would be useful, because this is one way in which one can bring fresh blood into the politics of Pakistan, and secondly also discourage dynastic politics, and maybe give people a choice to select other people. So I think that should be considered. We should consider term limits on the prime minister and the chief minister. We should consider other legal by which we can discourage this, but we can't really go against the principles of democracy and put down in the law that a person can be prime minister, but his son can't be prime, etc., etc. I would go against that. I would be against that. The other question is the system of election. I think, as I said earlier, that the proportional system of representation should be considered, but not immediately, not presently. We can think of a mix of the system, first past the post and proportional system, and we can think of this. We can also think of strengthening the Senate by giving it financial powers, and maybe also consider direct election of the Senate, which will give it the authority to act as an independent House of Parliament, I think that should be seriously considered, because wherever the second house is strong, the system is more stable, and in the Senate you could have people with more maturity, with more experience. We could put that in the constitution and have direct elections to the Senate. I think that should be considered.
I think that's a very good point. Wasim Saab, Hayek, in his famous book Constitution of Liberty, actually said that the second house should be directly elected and second house should act as a check on the first house. But Irfan Saab, bataiye, I mean, why can't we enact, I mean, for example, we do have eligibility laws. I can't go to Parliament and stand for election. My bid for election has to be cleared by the Election Commission. I have to prove certain credentials to get elected, which is honesty, etc. So why can't I also show that I'm an educated guy, that I've got some work experience? Why should somebody walk into Parliament who has absolutely no work experience whatsoever? Is it representation we want, or is it just handing out power? So shouldn't we have any limits at all? और जब मैं कह रहा हूँ फैमिली का, आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि जी प्राइम मिनिस्टर नहीं बन सकता, बट एक वक्त पे 6 बंदे एक फैमिली के पार्लियामेंट में बैठे हो सकते हैं।
ये इससे पहले आपने देखा होगा कि वो जनरल मुशर्रफ के टाइम पे उन्होंने एलिजिबिलिटी क्राइटेरिया जो है वो एक डिटरमिन किया था, उस पे उन्होंने ग्रेजुएट असेंबली का कॉन्सेप्ट जो था वो लेके आए थे। लेकिन जैसे वसीम साहब ने कहा है कि वंस यू आर टॉकिंग ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी, then you have to give equal opportunity to all and sundry to reach the parliament. The moment you will deny that opportunity, surely that would not, I mean, such an action would always become unconstitutional on the touchstone of equality clause, Article 25 in the Constitution. So that will be one problem. But if you, I mean, fix certain limits on the eligibility of these parliamentarians, and that, I think those eligibility conditions definitely will apply to all. So that way, I mean, you can improve upon this also, but obviously it's not a question which I can respond very quickly at the moment, because this requires more thinking. Now, coming to dynastic politics in Pakistan, I would say that yes, it is unfortunate, but all over the subcontinent it's like this, that this dynastic politics is deep rooted in our psyche, and that psyche needs to be changed. Will it change in the near future or not? At least I don't see it changing so soon, because we have seen a lot of youngsters coming up, and because of their family tree, anybody coming from the leader's immediate family, obviously seniors also start owing allegiance to them, and then this is something which cannot be done in the short run. But constitutional provisions can be incorporated as regards conflict of interest, and that we must incorporate, and but that would obviously require more thinking, and for the time being, I don't have any more suggestion to offer in this regard.
Thank you.
There is one suggestion I would like to make. You know, in our system, the candidates are selected actually by the party president and the close coterie of people or close relatives. And that is why we have the close relatives and nephews and nieces coming in. In some countries, and especially in England, the party candidate is chosen by the constituency. And I think this kind of a provision could be made in the constitution or the law, that the candidate has to be chosen in some manner by the constituency and not by the party president. I think that kind of suggestion could be considered.
वेरी गुड। रिजवी साहब, देखिए आपने डायनेस्टी की बात की कि जी ये खुद ही खत्म हो रही है, तो मेरी जिंदगी निकलती डायनेस्टी खत्म होते होते, तो अब कितनी और जिंदगी निकलनी है डायनेस्टीज खत्म होते होते। और डायनेस्टी सिर्फ ये नहीं कि आप भुट्टो और शरीफ की बात करें, अली चीमा असद लियाकत का जो काम है वो शो करता है कि तकरीबन 200 या 300 फैमिलीज हैं जो कंटेस्ट करती हैं पॉलिटिक्स। आप और मैं तो कंटेस्ट ही नहीं कर सकते। तो एज इन इकोनॉमिक्स व्हाट वी वुड से इज दिस इज अ मोनोपोलिस्टिक प्रैक्टिस, और इसको हम बैन कर देंगे बिकॉज एंट्री अलाउ नहीं करती। तो क्या ख्याल है, कुछ हमारे पास और कुछ करना चाहिए कि नहीं?
Well, my point was that it is weakening, not disappearing. I mean, it will stay. And as long as these people from different families come to assembly through election, you will not be able to stop them. So far as, people, coming father, grandfather, father, and then son, that you can find even in the American system of elections. If you go to American House of Representative or Senate, you'll find a person has been elected 5 times, 6 times, or a son of a former senator becomes member of the lower house of Congress there. So you do have that kind of family influence. However, if you want to reduce that influence and role, then I think I would again go to what I said in my first presentation. The third part that I talked about, the relationship between individual and the state. To what extent the state can guarantee certain minimum securities to an individual will determine the extent to which he would be independent in exercising his vote. If for my protection from Thana, if for my protection from Tehsildar, I have to go to a strong person in my village, I will vote for that strong person. But if state can provide you that kind of protection, then of course I can exercise my vote independently. So I think this phenomena can be moderated, but this will not disappear. So far as term limit are concerned, in the presidential system, you do have term limit, but there is no parliamentary system in the world at the moment where term limit is there. Because if you go to constitution, there is no term for prime minister. The term is for the parliament, for the National Assembly, 5-year, 4-year, 3-year, House of Representative 2-year, but that's the presidential system. And prime minister can be knocked out of office within few days. For example, Vajpayee, when he became prime minister for the first time, he had to resign after 6 days because he could not get sufficient support in Lok Sabha. So when you say 2-term, what do you mean by 2-term in parliamentary system of government? If Vajpayee stays in office for 7 days or 6 days, would you consider that as a term or not a term? So that's an important question that has to be considered if terms are to be there in a parliamentary system of government, where prime minister does not always complete the tenure of the parliament. Now, coming to the question of conflict of interest, I think this is a very serious matter, because in Pakistan, we do not attach much importance to it, but that's the main problem, that people who have strong economic interest wield political power. By wielding political power, they strengthen their economic power, and from that economic power, they generate more political power. Therefore, there have to be very clear laws regarding conflict of interest. People in government, people in cabinet, that has to be contained. And that is one major problem, because we have examples when SROs were issued to accommodate certain powerful people to make money, and after 1 week that SRO is withdrawn because the need of that particular person whom you wanted to accommodate had been taken care of. So I think there have to be very strict laws on conflict of interest.
Thank you. साहब, ये आपने बड़ी अच्छी बात की, but concept of term भी जो हमारे यहाँ है, वो भी बड़ी interesting है कि terms जो बर्तानिया में है, मैंने नोटिस किया है बर्तानिया और जापान और इजराइल सब जगह हुकूमतें जो सी इतनी लास्ट नहीं करती जितने हमारे यहाँ जैसे आप बात अभी की थी इरफान साहब ने वो एपिसोड ऑफ द फेमस लेटर, तो उस वक्त उन्होंने अब 2-3 दफा हुआ है कि हमने पार्लियामेंट को डिसॉल्व नहीं किया वंस अ प्राइम मिनिस्टर वेंट। हालांकि अगर पार्लियामेंट्री की बात करें तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर डज लीव अगर कोई प्रॉब्लम इतना बड़ा हो जाए जैसे हो गया था। दूसरी चीज टर्म लिमिट नहीं है तो हम वी कैन ऑलवेज बी द फर्स्ट। टर्निंग टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन जी, देखिए हमारे यहाँ जो है रिप्रेजेंटेशन हमारे यहाँ ये नहीं होती लेजिस्लेशन के लिए, सारे पैसे के पीछे भागते हैं, कैबिनेट बढ़ जाता है टू 50-60, जैसे अब मेरा ख्याल फिर 60 के करीब हो गया, फिर 1000 लोग पार्लियामेंट्री सेक्रेटरी की पोजीशन, पार्लियामेंट्री वो एडवाइजर्स की पोजीशन, इस किस्म की चीजें लेते हैं। मिनिस्टर्स बनते हैं जैसे विद नो एक्सपीरियंस एंड दे हैव a huge amount of power. They do whatever they like. They're almost like little children playing. So let me ask you a question. Should we for better governance have some limit on the size of the cabinet? फिर आप कहेंगे पार्लियामेंट में नहीं, पार्लियामेंट्री गवर्नमेंट में नहीं होता, तो मैं आई वुड आर्ग्यू कि जी पार्लियामेंट्री हुकूमत को भी जर्मनी, फ्रांस वगैरह कई लोगों ने उसको इवॉल्व कर दिया है, कई चीजें इवोल्यूशन हुई हैं, तो वी कैन इवॉल्व इट टू, कई जगह हुआ है। दूसरी चीज ये है कि कैसे हम करें, जैसे स्वीडन ने अभी कहा है कि वो कहते हैं कि हमारी जो पब्लिक हेल्थ की पॉलिसी है दैट इज आउटसाइड पॉलिटिक्स। हमने हर चीज को पोलिटिसाइज कर दिया, हमारा वापडा भी, हमारा पीएसटी भी, एवरीथिंग इज पोलिटिसाइज्ड। द purpose of the constitution, as I understand Montesquieu etc., is to kind of separate politics from technical. You don't politicize a sanitation system as we've done it. Ministers, as I understand it, should be like boards of directors, but here they want to run the company. तो क्या इस पे हमें कुछ करना चाहिए कि नहीं, या हमें मिनिस्टर्स को खुली छुट्टी, हर चीज को पोलिटिसाइज कर दें, एनर्जी से लेके, जैसे शहबाज शरीफ ने मेट्रोज बना दिए बगैर किसी से पूछे, बगैर कोई टेक्निकल। इज दैट गुड गवर्नेंस? मेट्रो ने हमें 7 बिलियन कॉस्ट किया, उन मेट्रोज की वजह से आज हम फंड प्रोग्राम में फिर आ गए। क्या ये होना चाहिए? वसीम साहब बताइए।
देखिए जी, the questions you raised are these are not really constitutional questions. We must understand that we are working a parliamentary system which has its own difficulties. The Prime Minister has to have a majority supporting him, and in a coalition that becomes even more difficult. Not only that, the majority should continue to support him, and therefore you have to keep pleasing the members. You have to sometimes give in to their demands. This is, I would say, the offshoot of a parliamentary system. But these things, the difficulties you mentioned, they don't have to be part of the constitution. They should develop out of a political culture, maturity of the people, and maybe some changes in certain laws. Ministers are not supposed to be running day to day the department concerned. The ministers are supposed to lay down policy. And if the ministers start interfering in the day-to-day running, which is actually to be run by professionals, then difficulties arise. And if the minister is doing that, it is the responsibility of the Prime Minister to ensure that the rules of business, the norms are followed. So the system is quite clear. The minister is not supposed to deal with the day-to-day affairs. He deals with policy, he deals with the cabinet and all these other things. So I think that all these principles, they need maturity of the parties, maturity of the executive government, firmness of the Prime Minister. And I think now that the media is strong, once these issues are highlighted by the media, these things do come to light, and some corrections do tend to be made down the way. So these things, I think, should be left to law, to parliamentary traditions, to political traditions, and to, I think, developing norms within the party rather than making changes in the constitution.
Okay, fair enough. So even if we don't make changes in the constitution, should we have some legal provisions? Should we have something like that, Irfan Saab? Can we, I mean, I find as a citizen very disturbing, railways being run by the railway minister, and railway ka beda hark ho gaya, power is being run by the power minister. LNG के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट उन्होंने जाके साइन कर लिए किसी से नहीं, मतलब ये चीजें भी तो कौम को बहुत नुकसान पहुंचाती हैं. Are you telling me we have to wait for another few hundred years and lose so much more before we make any changes? Are we going to make any changes, Irfan साहब?
जी बिल्कुल, मैं समझता हूँ कि बिल्कुल वसीम साहब ने जो बात की है कि मिनिस्टर्स जो हैं उनका तो काम सिर्फ पॉलिसी मेकिंग का है. वो डे टू डे अफेयर्स जो हैं of an organization, they are not to run the organization on day to day basis. And we keep hearing फलानी चीज हो गई तो मिनिस्टर ने नोटिस ले लिया, फलानी चीज होगी तो चीफ मिनिस्टर ने नोटिस ले लिया. अब सवाल ये है कि हमारे जो ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हैं इतने वल्नरेबल क्यों हैं कि वो मिनिस्टर्स को नहीं कह सकते, प्राइम मिनिस्टर को शिकायत नहीं लगा सकते, बल्कि रूल्स ऑफ बिजनेस में लिखा हुआ है ये कि अगर कोई भी चीज, अगर कोई खिलाफे कानून है तो वो उसको रेजिस्ट करेंगे और वो मामला जो है विल गो टू द प्राइम मिनिस्टर, और ऑफिसर्स रेजिस्ट करते भी रहे हैं. लेकिन द क्वेश्चन इज दैट व्हाट इज दैट वल्नरेबिलिटी व्हिच कॉजेस देम टू succumb to these ministers. The main reason is the power to transfer. That a person is appointed as a federal secretary, a person is appointed as chairman railway, chairman WAPDA, or heading some big organization, some big ministry. Suddenly after 15-20 days we see him changing. we have seen this invariably in the matter of inspector generals, chief secretaries, and federal secretaries. In the recent present setup also, we have seen hundreds of transfers. Earlier, this would not happen. Earlier, a person getting to his department would have sufficient time to have a feel, to have a know-how of the department, to acquire expertise over a period of time. Here, by the time you get to know something, and you are out of that place. So therefore, we need to have laws where we could discourage these transfers. Court did make some effort in this regard by taking upon itself these issues of interfering in the matters of posting and transfers. But there we saw that a parallel government was being set up by the courts, and people would challenge their transfer in court, and ministers were being subjugated by the judges. And obviously that is also not what a parliamentary system should be. And this is one of the biggest problems, that bureaucracy cannot resist illegal orders either from the court or from the ministers. And this is one of the biggest problem that rule of law in Pakistan faces. And this is also one of the biggest problems that is with the good governance in Pakistan. So we need to have provide safeguards, sense of security to our bureaucrats, which they don't have. And there is another provision also in the laws that after 25 years you can send anybody, you can retire him compulsorily. So all these things make bureaucrats very vulnerable, and then they can be thrown out, they can be shown the door, and they don't have that security of term which the judges have. But the question is, should we give them that security of term that they may also become mother पितर आजाद और फिर वो भी कंट्रोल में ना आए? तो ये सारी चीजें गवर्नेंस के इश्यूज हैं, ये श्योरली कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल इश्यूज तो नहीं है, लेकिन ये तो वाकई ठीक कह रहे हैं वसीम साहब के वील हैव टू इवॉल्व अ कल्चर ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम सो दैट के इस तरह की चीजें जो है यहाँ पे ना हो और अपने अपने जो भी स्फीयर है उसके अंदर सब काम करें।
रिजी साहब बताइए कि क्या चेंजेस हम ला सकते हैं जिससे कोई हमें तो फायदा हो, वरना तो ये हमें इवोल्यूशन के लिए वेट करेंगे तो कितनी जनरेशंस आए होंगे इसमें।
Well, I think so far as the size of the cabinet is concerned, 18th constitutional amendment had put a limit on the size. However, it seems that the governments violate that by appointing special assistants. Otherwise, 18th constitutional amendment has addressed that issue. Here you have to, when I share the view that, that these issues are political. You don't have to put all these things in the constitution, but somehow, sometime you can make ordinary laws for that, or there has to be minimum consensus. What is missing in Pakistan is that there is no minimum political consensus amongst the political parties. And unless you have a minimum functional kind of understanding between the political parties, any system will run into difficulties, because you can't write each and every detail of a political system, how it functions on paper. Some of it goes on traditions, on values, and also on understanding. Unfortunately, the political parties in Pakistan are prepared to go to any extent to undermine the political adversary. So they will go to judiciary, they will seek military support if it serves their purpose. If it doesn't serve their purpose, they'll talk about democracy. They'll object to military's role because it doesn't serve. As long as it serves, military's role is fine. So I think that is the basic problem. And some of these things can be taken care of by simple straight laws. But others, you'll have to rely on good sense of the political leaders, and also emphasize time and again through media, through other means, that political leaders should behave. And if they behave, these institutions, state institutions, will not be able to overstep their domain.
Thank you. क्या कहते हैं Rizvi साहब, that is very good. I think quite frankly that goes back to the thing that I was trying to raise. All the more important that we should be able to select good people into parliament, which unfortunately we can't. And that's a huge issue for us that we can't select good people into parliament. Now let's see कि reform of institutions पूरी दुनिया में एक चीज हो गई है कि reform. मैगी थैचर के ज़माने से, रेगन के ज़माने से reform बात चल रही है. पूरी दुनिया ने बहुत रिफॉर्म किया है, पाकिस्तान ने कोई रिफॉर्म नहीं किया. और ख़ास तौर पर पार्लियामेंट कोई रिफॉर्म के अंदर इन्वॉल्व नहीं होती, ना पार्लियामेंट में कोई रिफॉर्म पे डिबेट होती है. आप लोगों में से कुछ लोग पार्लियामेंट में रहे भी हैं, आपने देखा कोई डिबेट नहीं होती इस पे. और जो रिफॉर्म आता है हमारा सारा डोनर से आता है, BISP, SB, स्टेट बैंक की लॉ, SCCP लॉ, CCP लॉ, टैक्स, ये सब कुछ वहां से आता है. पार्लियामेंट सिर्फ रबर स्टैंप करती है. और मैं खुद देख चुका हूँ जो यूनिवर्सिटीज की लॉ लिखी हुई है हमारी, वो बहुत ही फजूल है. दूसरी चीज जो हम देखते हैं कि जी पार्लियामेंट में 14वीं अमेंडमेंट पास हो गई जिसके अंदर सारे पार्लियामेंटेरियंस का इंडिविजुअल राइट टू वोट अकॉर्डिंग टू कॉन्शियस खत्म हो गया. पिल्डैड फाफन ने देखा हुआ है कि हमारी पार्लियामेंट की रिकॉर्ड क्या है, वो भी बड़ा खराब है, ना वोटिंग होती है ना अटेंडेंस है. अब ये है कि जी कंपनी लॉज, SCCP लॉ हम सब एग्जामिन कर चुके हैं, बहुत बुरी लॉज है. अब क्या करें हम? ठीक है जी, हाउ कैन यू मेक अ मोर डायनामिक सिस्टम, स्पेशली रिफॉर्म हमें चाहिए. colonial system हम प्रिजर्व कर करके मर गए, रिफॉर्म कब होगा? वसीम सज्जाद, I remember ये before he went to Oxford used to tell me about civil service reform. आज तक नहीं हुआ. ठीक है जी. अब मुझे बताएं कि जब एजुकेटेड बंदे ही नहीं पार्लियामेंट में, रिफॉर्म की डिबेट ही नहीं हो सकती, मिनिस्टर्स मिनिस्ट्री रन कर रहे हैं, कोई रिसर्च कहीं भी नहीं है, पार्लियामेंट काम नहीं कर रहा है, एग्जीक्यूटिव अपनी पावर बढ़ा रही है बार बार. एग्जीक्यूटिव फॉर एग्जांपल अपॉइंटमेंट जो है इस वक्त आपकी पता नहीं, मेरे ख्याल 100 एजेंसीज के हेड्स अपॉइंट ही नहीं हो रहे, उनसे अपॉइंटमेंट ही नहीं होती क्योंकि जो डिस्ट्री बीच में इंटरफेयर करती है. तो खुदारा बताइए क्या, should we just wait for another 100 years for reform, या रिफॉर्म होगा कभी के नहीं होगा, या हम बार बार फंड के पास जाएंगे और वो हमें बताएंगे क्या रिफॉर्म करो? क्यों जी वसीम साहब, how would you react to that?
देखिए जी, reform is a continuous process and it obviously doesn't happen overnight, and in a country you need to there are so many various institutions, there are laws which need to be reformed, there are institutions which need to be reformed, the constitution itself over a period of time you may need to change. Now, why is it that we are not having these reforms in this country and not at the speed at which you mentioned we should have them? The reason is, number one, that in other countries, when the party is in opposition, they are preparing to enter into government and they prepare all the agenda that they would be implementing once they come into government. And this agenda would deal with all kinds of issues, health, education, various institutions, etc., etc. And then when they come into government, they are ready, because already they've planned everything, they're ready to undertake legislation on that point. Now, what happens in Pakistan? Nobody is ready. Nobody has any program. Nobody has any agenda. They come into government, they're at a loss, and then start thinking from that day onwards, what should we do? Now, why is it happening? It is happening because the public is not insisting on reform as an issue in the election process. The public looks at personalities, that this man is going to do better work for me before the Thanedar and before the Patwari, or this man is going to be more effective because he's in party A or party B. Reform is the last thing on the mind of the elector in Pakistan. But in other countries, the more advanced countries, I would take the example of England, the United States of America, it is these kinds of issues which people vote upon and then compel the government to go into reform and make changes. So therefore, we need a basic change in the attitude of the voter, in the attitude of the parties, in the attitude of the government, and this will take time. It may not take 100 years, but once this awareness has been created, it will become sooner. And I think one of the things which could help in that is frequent elections. And a 4-year term, as was suggested, may help in that. And creating an awareness through media, through others, and also creation of think tanks within the government where they are constantly thinking of changes in various institutions and departments. In England, there's a permanent law commission. Permanent law commission means they're there all the time. They're all the time looking at laws. They prepare everything, and then in this final finished form, they submit it to the government to be placed before Parliament. I think we need that kind of an institution in Pakistan, where all these matters are constantly under review. And constantly under review means not only that just the government itself must be maybe thinking about it, but where there's an outreach to people who are affected, there's wider discussion and debate, and the suggestions that come up are suggestions which are supported by and large by by a vast segment of the people who are affected by that kind of reform or legislation. So that is the kind of attitude we need to change or bring about, which will undertake reform, proper reform process in Pakistan.
जी इरफान साहब, ये क्या हम वेट करते रहेंगे या रिफॉर्म को कैसे हम लाएं जल्दी? देखिए, हमारा इस मुल्क का दिवालिया पिट चुका है, इस मुल्क का और बड़ी बड़ी हालत है, पॉपुलेशन बढ़ रही है, और अगर रिफॉर्म नहीं होगा और हम डेमोक्रेसी करते रहेंगे तो पता नहीं हम कहाँ जाएंगे, बताइए।
हमने जो सिस्टम बोरो किया है, ये हमें ऑब्वियसली ब्रिटिश से मिला है, और वहां पे जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो तो ये है कि किंग कैन डू नो रॉन्ग, और अगर मैं उसको सामने रखूं तो पार्लियामेंट जो है हमारी, वो तो समझेगी कि जी हम तो वी आर अबव रिफॉर्म्स, सो वी डोंट नीड टू हैव एनी रिफॉर्म्स फॉर द लेजिस्लेचर, व्हिच इज द मोस्ट अनफॉर्चुनेट पार्ट। और वो उस किस्म के रिफॉर्म्स जो है लेजिस्लेचर में आए भी नहीं है, जिससे कि मोस्ट कॉम्पिटेंट, मोस्ट ऑनेस्ट, मोस्ट अपराइट लोग जो है वो हमारी पार्लियामेंट का हिस्सा बन सकें। लेकिन हिंदुस्तान में अगर आप ब्रिटिश इंडिया का पीरियड देखें तो वी कम अक्रॉस जो मोस्ट वेल नोन रिफॉर्म्स मैंने तब पढ़े थे, वो लॉर्ड कॉर्नवालिस के जुडिशियल एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रिफॉर्म्स थे। उस किस्म की भी कोई चीज जब से पाकिस्तान बना है हमने नहीं की। और एटलीस्ट अगर हम सबसे अच्छे ऑनेस्ट लोग नहीं भी ला सक रहे, अगर हम अपराइट लोग नहीं भी ला सक रहे, तो एटलीस्ट सिस्टम शुड बी सच विच इज केपेबल ऑफ लीस्ट अब्यूज। और अगर इस तरह के लोग हमारे सिस्टम में आ जाएं तो एटलीस्ट सिस्टम के अंदर इनबिल्ट चेक्स इतने हो कि वी शुड बी एबल टू गेट रिड ऑफ देम क्विकली, बट दैट इज आल्सो नॉट द केस। तो इन हालात में आई वुड से कि वी डेफिनेटली लैक इन रिफॉर्म्स, and nothing has been seriously done in this regard in the last 60-70 years of Pakistan's history. And I would agree with Nadeem Saab that yes, it is dire need of the time, and we must look into reforms now, especially the judicial reforms, the administrative reforms, and I would say reforms should also be in the legislature. All these three organs need reformation.
Yes, sir.
Reform is a high level, politics, and since it doesn't really, have much support at the common person level, there is hardly any pressure for that. When it comes to high level politics, the problem is that the groups and parties are so partisan, so partial in their outlook, that they can't think beyond their nose. That is, their major concern is how to maintain power, rather than thinking in the long-term sense that we need a better system with the passage of time, and how to improve the system. Therefore, the fate of reforms is very unfortunate in Pakistan. However, if some work is done by independent groups, even if those groups are established by the government, but those people should not be actively part of the government system, and they can recommend certain things, and if the government doesn't really implement, at least a section of public opinion or informed public opinion would know that certain changes have been proposed. The other problem is that the moment you talk about changes or reforms in, let's say, bureaucracy, the bureaucracy, you have powerful groups who start opposing or supporting that. In the case of judiciary, you have lawyers highly polarized, divided. You have a divided response from them, and the governments are usually then scared of taking steps. However, independent groups should continue to work on it, raise those issues on media, on the informed public opinion, and with the passage of time, we will change. But I don't expect, I'm not very optimistic about any major shift or change in Pakistan's political administrative, and even judicial system.
Very sad statement. But nevertheless, let me quickly share my last two questions with you, then we can go to the panel, to the audience. I have two very simple, quick questions. Executive claims that Parliament has delegated power to change the budget anytime they like. That's why the ECC changes the budget every meeting. It can also do supplementary grants, which the Parliament in the budget document will automatically ratify. Executive also can do SROs and borrow. I'd like to ask you people, is such delegation consistent with constitutional practice, or should there be, because there are very deep consequences of these things. One of the main functions of Parliament is budget, and this is how the budget is kind of delegated to the executive by the Parliament. Is this okay by you people, Wasim Saab?
You see, these parliamentary practices have been in vogue for many, many years. Supplementary grant, etc., etc. You have to give some flexibility to the government. You can't put it in a straight jacket, because always there'll be some expenses which are you don't expect. Always there'll be some projects which come up all of a sudden, and the government has to deal with it. The check, of course, as you know, is Parliament, and all these things have to be approved by Parliament. And if the Parliament is mature, if the Parliament is able to assert itself, these practices, the malpractices, if any, in this process can be checked. So therefore, I would not say that they should be done away with. These are things that have been going on. They are there to run the government properly and efficiently, and their misuse should be checked by Parliament. And I would leave it at that and say that there's no need to finish them altogether. These delegated powers also are powers which are given by Parliament. And again, one thing I would suggest is that any use of delegated power, any SRO, any such move should be placed before Parliament, and there should be a committee of Parliament which should look at that and scrutinize that. And if there is any misuse, it should report it to Parliament. Because at the moment, there are so many actions taken in the field of delegated legislation, issuance of SROs, etc., etc. Some of have hidden implications which they don't know. And I think they should be scrutinized by a committee and then placed before Parliament. And I think this would be one of the ways in which their misuse can be checked.
Thank you. Irfan Saab?
जी बिल्कुल, ये देखें आप, इस पे the oversight of Parliament is very much there, even the matters of supplementary grant, and उस पे Parliament खुद है, then there is a Public Accounts Committee, then there is Auditor General of Pakistan. तो वो ये तमाम जो भी grants होती हैं, then audit is carried out, इनकी reports जो हैं, they are presented to Public Accounts Committee, and then Parliament also can discuss these matters if तो oversight भी है. तो therefore this is taken care of by the Constitution. And supplementary grants, obviously, at times you need them, and it is at times of need or necessity when there is a supplementary grant required. So you can't stop them. You cannot put it, as Wasim Sajjad Saab has said, in a straight jacket. So I would say that there is oversight in this. Parliamentary oversight is there.
Askari Saab?
Yeah, I think I share these views that the government or administration needs flexibility in dealing with certain administrative and financial matters. However, ultimately, everything has to go back. If they have given, some reduced, let's say, taxes, or they have allocated funds which were not presented to the Parliament, but all these things have to go back to the Parliament ultimately, and approval from there, although it may be a later or late approval, but nevertheless approval. And if there is some financial, wrongdoing, then Parliament needs to take up the matter. But you can't really say that anything to be done by administration, it has to be first approved by the Parliament. Perhaps this will make the system more dysfunctional than what it is now in Pakistan.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. Who would like to ask a question? I have somebody here, Mac user. I don't know who that is. Somebody's raised their hands. So करामत अली साहब चलें, आप शुरू कर दें, या निसार मेमन साहब चलें, आप शुरू करें। निसार साहब ने पहले किया हाथ खड़ा, निसार साहब चलें।
Thank you very much. I think it was a great pleasure to listen to the very, very open discussion, and particularly I can understand, Nadeem, your impatient and in the situation. But I think the panelists have presented a very, very balanced view, and in fact, we started talking about the parliamentary system and then reform. And I think each one of the panelists have, in different ways, have presented various reforms. And I'm sure that when your paper is compiled, various reforms will come in. But my point is very fundamental, I think, which is this, that first of all, that Pakistan constitution is clearly says it's a parliamentary form of government. And this is something, if people who are elected to this parliament and those people who are put in charge of the governance as a result of the parliament and are managing the country, if their faith in parliament is not there, then I think that is precisely is the problem. I'll give you a very simple example. Look at the prime minister today, or even previous years. I only remember one prime minister, because I haven't been watching all the prime ministers, but Yusuf Raza Gilani. I think he was one of those prime ministers. I don't know before, and maybe afterwards I'm happy, but he clearly comes out the person who attended the parliament regularly and the most. Look at on the other side, I compare him with the present prime minister. How many times has he gone there? Because to be in the parliament, you have to believe in it. And I think if we were, even when they were, present party was, governing party was not in the parliament, and not in the government, they were agitating all the time. And still that continued. So I think there should be a very, and I will look up to the Wasim Sajjad, Irfan Saab, to tell us that how can you bring in that if there is any attempt by anybody, whether it's a prime minister or a minister or a judiciary, on sabotaging the constitutional parliamentary form of government, because all of these debates that you see is diversionary. There's nothing else. And also, if you say we clearly remember there was a clear numbers that were given for the parliament. Now you bring in the special assistant. I think this is sabotaging the whole system. And I think there should be a very clear penalty for anybody who is doing it. And the courts must come out and clearly defend the parliamentary form of government, because that's part of the constitution. So I think if you look at it, all institutions, while I heard the parliament may have failed, while I heard a lot of bashing on the parliament, but I think parliament, more than that, the judiciary has also failed Pakistan over and over again since the 50s that we have been seeing. And this practice of taking over is part of it. Similarly, I think the constitution, so two things come up. Number one, I agree with what Wasim Sajjad Saab said and Irfan Saab endorsed, that there is clearly the oversight of the parliament is there, and parliamentary committees are doing the oversight. And I have been in the parliament, I have been chairman of the parliamentary committee. We could even oversight. And let me just recollect for myself, that for the others who may not know, that I was chairman of the Defense and Defense Production Committee. And when I was given, I said, "Ji, mujhe ye kis liye de rahe hain? Isme to koi baat hi nahi kar sakte." Unhone kaha, "Ji, aap kare to sahi na kare." And believe me, we started to question for the first time in the history, the parliamentary committee asked for what is the defense policy. After resistance, it was presented. We got the lines of the budget included. So a lot of things parliamentary committees are doing. And I think they're not talking so much, therefore there's so much of bashing. I would say that yes, parliamentary committees are there. Now, PSC ki jo aapne baat kahi, I think there has to be implementation again. If the audited numbers Auditor General is giving is 4 years back, the whole thing is passed. So I think there has to be an enforcement of it. So accountability parliament ki to har waqt ho jati hai. What about the judiciary? Uski कतन नहीं हो रही है. और आप देखें judiciary का एक major काम है. मैं as a citizen I am talking. People must get justice, and हमको justice वो district courts में मिलती है. Courts के नीचे. All of this is the court system. So I think major reforms must be initiated in the judiciary, that the common man should get the justice. वो नहीं मिल रही. अगर उनको चाहिए और लोग तो ये लंबी बात हो रही है. बट फाइनली आज से देखिए आप सब कुछ कर लें, 18th अमेंडमेंट आ गया, अब 18th अमेंडमेंट को इम्प्लीमेंट ही न किया जाए तो इसमें लॉज कितने लाएंगे? मैं तो आपको बताऊं कि इस मुल्क में सानिया सबसे बड़ा यह है कि वी हैव गॉट द लॉज, वी हैव गॉट द सिस्टम, बट वी आर नॉट इम्प्लीमेंटिंग देम। और जो भी नहीं कर रहा वो बड़ा आराम से निकल जाता है। हम 30 साल पुराने केसेस तो निकालने नैब में ले जाते हैं, जो आज हो रहा है उसको तो कोई देख ही नहीं रहा है। तो आई थिंक द होल पॉइंट इज हमें दो चीजों पे कीजिए नदीम साहब, मेरी गुजारिश है आपसे कि एक तो ये कि इंस्टीट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म्स को अलग रखें कि ये करें और हर इंस्टीट्यूशन को लीजिए, और उसमें ये भी जैसे आपने कहा मिलिट्री का भी इंटरफेरेंस रहा है, बट क्यों हुआ है, उसमें भी कैसे हुआ है, उसको एनालाइज करके वहां पे भी रिफॉर्म लाए। अच्छा, दूसरा यह है कि ये जो इंस्टीट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म्स होंगे और इंस्टीट्यूशनल इंटरफेरेंस इज द मेजर थिंग, वो जो आप लोगों ने जिक्र किया है मुख्तलिफ स्पीकर्स ने, उसके लिए किस तरह से इसको रोका जाएगा। अगर ये रिकमेंडेशन आ जाए और फिर as I will say who will bell the cat, and I think Nadeemul Haq will do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nisar Saab. Folks, please keep your interventions short. We have to go back to the panel afterwards. Please, panel note करते रहें, हम आपको पास वापस आएंगे। असद शाह साहब बोलिए, असद अली शाह साहब।
Thank you, Nadeem साहब। I think ये issues तो आपने बहुत सारे highlight किए, आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा कि रिफॉर्म्स जो हैं वो कैसे होंगे, कब होंगे। तो वसीम सजाद साहब सेड दैट इट टेक्स टाइम। मुझे तो ये लग रहा है कि एज अ टाइम गोज ऑन हम पीछे जा रहे हैं, आगे तो नहीं जा रहे हैं। रिफॉर्म्स जो हैं पिछले 72 साल में अगर टाइम से होता तो कुछ तो इम्प्रूवमेंट होती ना। वी आर अगर कोई होता भी है, यू आल्सो रेज द क्वेश्चन ऑफ कैबिनेट साइज। आपने आई रेज दिस इशू ऑन अ ट्वीट, आपने देखा होगा कि अमेरिका में विच इज द लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी, वहां पर 15 सेक्रेटरीज हैं प्रेसिडेंट के साथ, उनकी कैबिनेट।
बिल्कुल सही।
चलें उसको छोड़ दें, पार्लियामेंट्री फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट की बात कर लेते हैं। द मदर कंट्री यूके में 22 मिनिस्टर्स हैं, सेक्रेटरीज हैं। हमारे पास 51 है, ये SAPMs भी हम लेके आए हैं, और उसके अलावा हमारे सेक्रेटरीज अलग हैं। वन ऑफ द पुअरेस्ट कंट्री। अच्छा, इसी तरीके से आप जापान को देख लें। जापान में बाय लॉ यू कैन नॉट हैव मोर देन 14 मिनिस्टर्स, यू नो, एंड दिस इज द थर्ड लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी। इन जर्मनी आल्सो आई थिंक इट्स लिमिटेड टू 20 और सो। फ्रांस कहीं पे भी 20 से ज्यादा मिनिस्टर्स नहीं होने चाहिए हैं। तो ये तो सिंपल सी चीजें हैं जो कि हम नहीं कर रहे हैं। तो मेरा तो ये कंक्लूजन है, असल पॉइंट ये है कि वो किसी ने कहा कि as long as people will continue to worship Napoleons and Caesars will continue to rise and make them miserable.
Very good point. Thank you, Asad साहब। Mac user जी, Mac user कौन है जी? अपने आप को इंट्रोड्यूस भी करा दे प्लीज। हेलो Mac user, हाथ खड़ा जी। पीटी चले, पीटी बोले। परवेज ताहिर साहब जी, फॉर्मर चीफ इकोनॉमिस्ट, बोले जी।
Well, I'm sorry to have to say this. To me, it looks like I was listening to a technocratic setup. A lot of politicians bashing. The subject was political instability, and no politician here to discuss it. Actually, technocrats have ruled this country more than the politicians. And therefore you have no reform here. Because technocrats are basically slaves of the donors you have been talking about. And that is our problem. Politicians have tried to avoid them, but then they succumb to these people. So first of all, you should have had a politician also on the panel, so that we could focus on political instability. And the major source of political instability in this country is not political. And I will like the panelists to focus on that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. जी, करामत अली साहब। करामत अली साहब कहाँ हैं जी? चलिए जी, आप बोलिए मौजम साहब।
Sir, I have a very quick question, and that is relating to the provision of Article 140A. Is it enough to ensure the continuity and continuity of the local governments, or we are required to revisit it because we have left to the provinces, and as a result of that, what has happened in the 3 provinces at the moment, there are no local governments, and there is only one province, Sindh. They have the elected representatives, and the rest of the provinces. And in near future, I don't see that in near the elections are going to help for this body.
ठीक है जी. मोइन बाटले साहब. मोइन बाटले here.
Thank you. A couple of quick points. एक तो ये कि जी 4 years पे अगर लाएंगे या 3 years, then just remember that they may be jostling and planning for the re-election even sooner. So more time may be wasted. एक ये point है. दूसरा ये कि I think people are logical in what they do. So I feel I've been to a couple of parliamentary, sessions, and the reason why the Prime Minister's Parliament में नहीं जाते या parliaments जो हैं वो इतने utilize नहीं होते is because parliaments are weak. The level of debate is weak. So it goes back to the point that we have to elect stronger parliaments. So I do agree with Nadeem Shah that there needs to be good criteria, to have strong members. And I think अगर honesty पे criteria हो सकता है तो फिर educational qualifications और experience पे क्यों नहीं हो सकता? After all, these are going to lead the country. So if अगर parliament strong होंगे तो automatically वो utilize भी होने लगेंगे और they'll become part of the picture. So those were my points. Thanks.
Iftikhar Sahab.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my question is to Wasim Sajjad Saab and Professor Hassan Askari Saab. My question is that, is there any demand for change? Do you see any constituency for change necessitating any reforms? Do we need, and the last thing is that, do we need leaders to bring change, or we need social pressure that will bring change?
Amir Hussain Saab, last question, bataiye.
Thank you very much. It was insightful discussion. My concern is that if we look at the roadmap for reforms, whatever democracy you want to see in the country, whether it's marketplace democracy, whether it is parliamentary, presidential, whatever, you've got to have a strong citizenship. The role of citizenship is very important because we have seen that in Pakistan there is no accountability in place. Even if you go to the parliament, and they are not accountable to people, but they are accountable to other institutions which take us our resources. So then the balance of power will not be determined. So first thing is, I can't imagine a better future for Pakistan without better citizenship, without an informed citizenry, without restoring the student unions at the universities, building the nurseries of political leadership from the campuses, and without reforming education system to make it ideology free and make it more state-citizen relationship education, more focus on people's welfare. And I think going forward, if we want to see a better democracy, we have to work on those, and also a vibrant civil society, taking onus of public welfare, taking issues to the parliament, taking issues to the relevant authorities, and also thinking of redistribution of resources, because the resources which could have been used for education, health, and basic necessities are being taken away for a wrong, perception of security paradigm. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a good position to go back to the panelists, Ji. I think lots of questions have been raised, so please, try and address them as you can, whichever ones you like and how you want to address them. Yes, it's a deep issue and a very difficult issue to deal with. I have no clear answers. I just questions. So Wasim Saab, please, would you like to go first?
Sir, good सवाल. एक दो observations मैं भी देना चाहता था. My apologies.
शायद साहब आप लास्ट मिनट पे आ गए हैं. चलें बोलें, जल्दी से बोलें. 2 minutes.
नहीं सर, मैं तो पहले से आया हुआ था. मैं उस पे आपको मैंने मैसेज भी किया. Anyway सर, जल्दी से observations एक दो, खास तौर पर respected इरफान कादर साहब ने जो बात की, very good talk. एक सर ये कि जो ये एक स्टांस है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में कोई वो सारी ये उसमें कोई मसला नहीं है. आई वुड डिसएग्री. देखें, एक एग्जांपल लेता हूँ. प्रीएम्बल उसका ये कहता है कि इट शुड बी बेस्ड ऑन इस्लामिक प्रिंसिपल्स, तो इस्लाम में तो किसी की इम्यूनिटी नहीं है, लेकिन आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में देख लें, वो कहते हैं कि जजेस और आर्म फोर्सेस वालों की इम्यूनिटी है। तो ये फिर ये किस किस्म का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन होता है? फिर वो आर्टिकल 38 में कहते हैं कि हर एक को जॉब सिक्योरिटी और वो देनी चाहिए, इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी। तो इसको मिसयूज इस तरह किया गया है कि सरकारी इदारे बना बना के नेशनलाइज कर करके उसमें लोगों को डंप करते गए हैं, तो उसकी कोई इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं है, उसको अब्यूज किया जा रहा है। फिर सर रोल ऑफ जुडिशरी है, हमारे यहाँ पे चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस नहीं है। अब कोई रिफॉर्म की प्रपोजल आ भी जाए तो सब जिसने एक इंट्रेंस्ड जो हमारे कॉर्नर्स हैं या इंट्रेंस्ड जो वो इंटरेस्ट है, वो सीधा चला जाएगा जुडिशरी में, वो वहां से जाके स्टे ऑर्डर ले लेगा, वो 10 साल तक भी पड़ा रहेगा। आपका भी एक केस है, आप खुद देख चुके हैं कि वो पड़ा रहता है, कोई उसको कोई उठाता नहीं है, ना उसको कोई सुनता है। तो जुडिशरी की कब इसमें रिफॉर्म्स की जितनी भी प्रपोजल है, इसमें जुडिशरी की बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है प्रपोजल। हु विल क्वेश्चन देम, उनको कौन क्वेश्चन करेगा? ठीक है सर,
थैंक यू शाहिद साहब।
ओके सर,
थैंक यू जी। अच्छा जी, वसीम साहब, वुड यू लाइक टू एड्रेस सम ऑफ दीज इश्यूज? हेलो, Wasim Saab is here or not? Is he?
Can you hear me now?
जी जी, हाँ जी, I can hear you. बोलिए बोलिए बोलिए।
So I said a very valuable suggestions and comments have been made. It would be impossible to respond to all of them, but I will make a few general comments. Number one, I think the point which was made, there is no immunity in the Constitution to either the judiciary or the armed forces. The only thing in the Constitution regarding judiciary is that for removal of a judge, a special procedure has been laid down, and that procedure is through the Supreme Judicial Council. But there is no other immunity. Similarly, there is no immunity for the armed forces. Number two, there was a suggestion regarding accountability and the Prime Minister appearing before Parliament. Now, in England, there is no constitution, written constitution. There is no law which says that the Prime Minister has to appear before Parliament. And yet, as you know, the Prime Minister appears before Parliament every week in what is known as Prime Minister's Question Time. Why does he do it? This is because of traditions developed over a period of time, political traditions, expectations of the people, and norms which develop once the system is working. In Pakistan, no such norms have developed, but some prime ministers have followed that practice. Name of Mr. Yusuf Raza Gilani was given. I would give the name of Mr. Mohammad Khan Junejo. They faithfully respected Parliament, attended the sessions, answered questions, responded to suggestions from the members, and as far as Mr. Junejo is concerned, he would physically shift to Parliament when the sessions of the National Assembly and Senate were ongoing. So, need for reform, somebody raised this question about the need for reform. Yes, there is always need for reform. Even the advanced countries, America, United States, Germany, all feel there's a need for reform. In Pakistan, there's greater need for reform because there's a lot of wrongdoing in almost every section of society. Corruption has to be rooted out. Efficiency has to be maintained and created. Things have to be expedited. People are not getting justice. People are being exploited. And we know, especially in the rural areas, that the people are at the mercy of the officials. They can't even get their normal rights which are guaranteed under the Constitution. And I think Mr. Nisar Mehman made this point, that the laws are not implemented. You know, we have a lot of laws. The laws give protection to women. They give rights to women. The law gives the rights of information, the right of liberty, the right of property to the people of Pakistan. But in practice, they are not there. So we need to ensure, create a machinery where the ordinary man has a voice and he can have his right enforced through whatever means. And we need to look at that aspect. We don't need to create more laws. We need to find ways and means by which these laws can be properly and efficiently implemented. How do we maintain the dignity of the individual in Pakistan? In Pakistan, the ordinary person has no dignity whatsoever. If he goes to the police station, he is harassed, humiliated. If he goes for any other right which belongs to him, he has to stand in a line for long hours, and at the end of the day, he doesn't get anything. He doesn't get anything unless he's able to spend money, which most people don't have. So these are the issues in Pakistan. Reform is needed, and reform will come when the people press for it. Unfortunately, most of the people in Pakistan do not recognize and realize the importance of pressing for their rights. They're uneducated. They go like herds and vote for people who have strong links with them by way of tribalism or Baradari system, or even, I would say, wealth in that area. But we need to have a system by which people will respond to people's wishes and desires, their problems, and have them implemented. And it is here that the parliamentary system becomes more relevant to our kind of situation. Because in a parliamentary system, the member elected is nearer to the people. He should be there all the time to address their questions. In any other system, the connection between the people and the member is not very strong. So these are the general comments I would need to make. There is need always for reform. We should press for it, and the media can play a strong part. And frequent elections, I think that is very important. Frequent elections are an answer to this. One of the point I think was made regarding Article 140A of the Constitution. Now, unfortunately, Article 140A is deficient. It just mentions local bodies. It does not create any timetable for election to local bodies. It does not give them any resources. It does not place any obligation on the provincial government to hold elections. All these need to be addressed, whether we do it through the Constitution or through some law. I think this is a matter which needs to be addressed and taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice, Amrit. Thank you. Ji, Irfan Saab.
जी मैं I'll start from निसार मेमन साहब. उन्होंने मुआवजा किया था प्राइम मिनिस्टर साहब का उस वक्त के यूसुफ रज़ा गिलानी उस वक्त की पार्लियामेंट एंड द जुडिशरी, और उनका ये टेक था कि जुडिशरी शुड आल्सो बी केप्ट इन चेक. So I would fully agree with him that if we look at violating of the constitution, I don't think anybody has violated the constitution more than the judiciary itself. Interestingly, अभी recently आपने देखा होगा कि एक फैसला आया था जिसमें उन्होंने कह दिया कि जनरल मुशर्रफ जो है उनको सजाए मौत दे दी जाए और उनकी लाश को भी घसीटा जाए, और फॉरगेटिंग कि जितने भी पाकिस्तान में जो एक्स्ट्रा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल डिस्पेंसेशन थी या एक्स्ट्रा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल टेक ओवर्स थे, वो तमाम चीफ जस्टिसेस, तमाम जजेस, दे वर ऑल अ पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ दैट. एंड ऊपर से जो जुडिशियल प्रेसिडेंट्स हैं, अगर आप देखें रिसेंट पास्ट के, खास तौर पे आफ्टर द रेस्टोरेशन ऑफ दिस प्रेजेंट जुडिशरी, so we find that judicial precedents are so chaotic that it is a case of total lawlessness when we look into the judicial precedents. Or Englistan mein we used to hear prior to the Judicature Act of 1876 that the equity or the law that varied with the foot of the Chancellor. In Pakistan also we have seen that after the restoration of Justice Chaudhry and the subsequent Chief Justices, the law has also become the foot of that Chancellor or foot of the Chief Justice. And they are interfering almost invariably in every department of the government, in every organization. So much so that not only in the executive, but Wasim Sajjad साहब ने अभी आपको बताया कि पार्लियामेंट को भी डायरेक्शन इशू कर रही है जुडिशरी, जो कि कभी हुआ ही नहीं था इस तरह का. तो नॉट, और जहां तक उनकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी का सवाल है, तो ये एक इन्होंने खुद ही मिथ बना दी है कि एज इफ दे आर इम्यून फ्रॉम एनी अकाउंटेबिलिटी. Comes to any criminal act, there is no immunity excepting the president or the governors. Otherwise, even Prime Minister is not immune from a criminal act. Constitution gives no immunity to anybody, and there is no immunity to a judge. Likewise, from the laws of National Accountability Ordinance, of the laws of National Accountability Bureau or the National Accountability Ordinance, that law applies not only to holders of public office but to all persons in Pakistan. And judges have been referred to as public servants in Section 21 of the Pakistan Penal Code. And they also come within the definition of the word person as contained in the National Accountability Ordinance. So there is absolutely no immunity. Why nobody has so far made cases against the corrupt judges? Well, that itself is a big question mark on the integrity of judiciary itself. So judiciary also is in the dock, and they are not immune from any accountability, either constitutionally or under any law. And now we need to reconstitute our judiciary also, because if we looked at strict legality, restoration of Justice Iftikhar Chaudhry was by means of an executive order. And there was a judgment of the Supreme Court according to which he had ceased to be a judge, and that judgment had already been reviewed and he was no longer a judge, and that judgment had not even been revisited, and by an executive order a judgment of the Supreme Court was undone. All that was done illegally and by an announcement, and everybody knows that it was General Kiani who rang up Mr. Etazaz Ahsan, also brought this on record, and he's on record saying that General Kiani told me that Justice Iftikhar Chaudhry has been restored. Such a restoration, it was neither constitutional nor it was according to any statute. Therefore, it was all illegal, and then his hand-picked judges who were in minority, they overthrew the entire Supreme Court and all the high courts of the country, which is unprecedented. And those who were thrown out, or judges who were shown the door, they were not even party to the proceedings. They were not even afforded an opportunity of hearing. Such orders, even in the times of before Christ, when there was civilization was weak, even at that time, such orders were considered to be void orders. And today we claim that we live in a civilized society. And if this is the edifice of our judiciary that we have had, today we are having. So unless we reconstitute judiciary, we are always going to be in trouble. And then why judiciary dominates the parliament? This is a very, very important question. The reason is that not only that in parliament we do not have competent people, but there is one power which judiciary has got, and that is the power to choose their own law. That is the contempt law. Whenever parliament gives a contempt law, they strike down that contempt law, and resultantly they issue notices to the prime ministers, to federal ministers, and they just, they are held up for contempt. And this is what gives that supremacy to the judiciary. Why should there not be a law for contempt of parliament? Why should there not be a law for contempt of parliamentary committees or for contempt of chairman Senate? I think we need to incorporate that law also, and that is a shortcoming of the parliament, that they have themselves allowed the hegemony of judiciary to rule, to be ruled by the judiciary. So all these reforms are required, and then there will be that parity and this balance of power which now tilts in favor of the judiciary. This should be brought at par, and this can always be done, but that is through legislation or through constitutional amendments. This needs to be achieved. And about Parvez Tahir Saab had been saying that, he was saying that the politicians are unrepresented and there are technocrats here. So it's kind of him to call us all technocrats, but the thing is that we people are neutral. We have no love laws for bureaucrats or for politicians, and we are absolutely neutral. And we genuinely feel that our politicians should be more competent, should be more capable. And because they are not capable enough, most of them, that is also one of the reasons that they suffer. And they have become weak, because Darwin's theory also, survival of the fittest. And somehow they have shown over the years that they are not the fittest. And that is why they have managed to survive. But they have survived, I would say, in the manner in which it is not a very dignified way of surviving so far, the way they have survived. And now coming to other questions about Article 140, तो वसीम साहब ने उसका तो जवाब दे दिया. और अगर कोई और question है कि तो रह गया तो मुझे बता दीजिए. I will respond to that as well.
I think that's fine. That's fine. No problem.
Thank you.
Rizvi Saab.
Well, I think these were very valuable comments, and the variety of comments shows that the issues that we are dealing with are multi-dimensional, and to multi-dimensional problems you can have different kind of approaches. However, I think the crux of the problem, in my view, is that the institution that needs to be central to the political and administrative process, that is Parliament. Parliament's centrality has been compromised over a period of time. And I think the political leaders can only assert centrality of the Parliament if they come to what I have always been calling a minimum consensus to work the system, that is the parliamentary system. And if they can, work together on minimum consensus, then Parliament can play a lead role, hold institutions accountable, and provide approval to what other institutions need. As this is not the case, government and opposition are always at daggers drawn in the Parliament. Therefore, what we have seen in Pakistan, that non-elected institutions have become more powerful than elected institutions. And for that, detailed comments were made about the role of judiciary, which needs to be, seen as a product of the problem of non-elected institution dominating elected institution. We need to create a balance, because the success of democracy is that when all institutions of the state are autonomous, as well as they balance each other. No institution is able to dominate. You need to create interdependence rather than dependence that has existed in Pakistan. So far as the one or two comments are concerned, I think if you agree that this is a multi-dimensional issue, so the causes of instability are also multiple causes. You can't explain instability on one variable, but there are multiple administrative, political, judicial, and also cultural factors that have to be taken into account. So far as local government is concerned, that has been answered. But to me, that is why in my first presentation, to me, there has to be a constitutional provision. At the moment, local governments are governed by the laws that are provincial assemblies frame, and provincial assemblies are under the control of the provincial government, and provincial governments are not really interested in local government. They want to control everything through MNA, MPs, at the district level and below. So there has to be a constitutional provision. An obligatory local government election has to be part of the legal system or constitutional system. So far as demand for change question was concerned, yes, demand for change comes from almost all sections of population, depending on their problems. So keeping in view their problems, ordinary people will have one kind of demand, the other people will talk of other kind of change. But when it comes to the systemic changes, then it's the upper section of the society that deals. Last comment deals with the role of citizenship. I think that's very important, because if you want to have a system of accountability, in addition to legal accountability, this popular accountability is important, and that can happen only if you have a citizenship and a consciousness that people have rights as well as duties. Thank you.
मंसूर, मेरे ख्याल में डॉक्टर साहब हैज लॉस्ट, उनको दोबारा लाओ लाइन पे।
सर वो भी दोबारा ज्वाइन करते हैं।
In the meantime, may I raise one question? Have we discussed whether there the possibility of a debate between the parliamentary and presidential form of government? Are we not considering that perhaps the parliamentary form of government has not worked in our system and we should reconsider this?
I think Asad Saab, we'll leave that for another debate. वो इंशाल्लाह कर लेंगे. अभी तो let me just say that we've had a wonderful discussion. Quite frankly, let's just sum it up very shortly. I don't want to take up a lot of time because we've had very good comments. We've got eminent speakers. PT's question that why didn't we get politicians? I will say I deliberately did not get politicians because you see them every evening on Hamid Mir and Kamran Khan, etc. We needed thinkers. We are a think tank. We needed thinkers. We needed people who can put things in perspective for us, people who can inform us through their learning. So I think we got that. And what we've learned is that we've got a very complex patrimonial system where democracy really is not working. Reform is the need of the time. Deep reform is necessary. Reform that will root out the colonial system, bring us into the 21st century. But we are caught in a catch-22 situation where we will neither have reform nor have good democracy. And I don't see how we can think our way out of this. I think it's a very strange situation, but we at the PID will keep pushing for reform. I think some suggestions that came up are worth highlighting. Hassan Askari Rizvi was absolutely right. We do need regular elections. 5-yearly elections is very silly. We must have local elections, provincial elections, and federal elections on separate dates, so that the government and the politicians get a continuous read on their performance, just like when in November, the US elections are held, even the president is shaken up. We need also, as Wasim Sajjad said, we need a serious consideration of that Senate should be directly elected. Right now, everything is in-house. We also need to worry about how women are elected. There should be no free ride anywhere. We also need to think of term limits. We also need to think of reform, not only of the judiciary, as Irfan said, but also of the administrative setup. So to my fellow PIDians and to my thinkers, to research people, and to all of you, let me just simply say, we need to raise our voice for reform. Unfortunately, when people say there is no demand for reform, it is the failure of the thinkers of Pakistan who are constantly debating civil military reform, but not debating reform. So I think, quite frankly, we should try and debate reform a lot more, try and do this a lot more. And that's what we in the PID are going to do regularly. So I thank my panel, Wasim Sajjad, I thank Irfan Qadir, and I thank Hassan Askari Rizvi. This is not going to be our last session on anything. As you see, we've done a few on finance, we've done a few on HR. We are going to continue to hammer away on reform ideas because ultimately that's how we are going to survive. To say that we'll keep repeating our past mistakes and correct them, I don't think it's going to happen. We really have to begin to think reform. So thank you, folks. Thank you very much for helping us. We will, inshallah, take up these things again. Thank you all. Thank you for participating.